Okay, I would like to make this video in regard to the John Walker Lindh situation. Now, for those of you that don't know, you may be young. Okay, you may not remember it because if you live in another country, you might not go back 20 years. You might not have watched the news 20 years ago. But in 2001, in my country, we had the September 11th attacks. And then after that, we had the United States invade Afghanistan for the purpose of exposing Al Qaeda and capturing as many Al Qaeda operators as possible, including the head Al Qaeda operator Osama bin Laden, who was killed later on in Pakistan. Okay. Now, one of the terrorists they captured ended up being an American, and he was interrogated by the CIA, and it was revealed, and we don't know this, but we believe there's a very strong possibility that he knew that the prisoners were going to rise up, and they caused a prison uprising which only resulted in one American casualty. However, that casualty was the CIA agent that was interrogating him. That was the first American casualty, Johnny Mike Spann. Johnny Spann, also known as Mike Spann. He was a U.S. Marine major who left the Marine Corps to go to the CIA and was interrogating him. And during the interrogation, John Walker Lindh did not mention, hey, these guys are going to rise up in here. But there was an uprising. Agent Spann was killed, and it resulted in massive casualties. Now, this individual was an American citizen by birth. He was a white Christian, and he converted to Islam. Now, I remember his father being on television back in the day when it happened, and the father was a total dumpski. Okay? The father, my 20-year-old boy's caught up in this stuff, The father said that when the USS Cole was bombed, he talked to his son on the phone, and his son said, the United States should not be in this area, and the United States being here is an act of war. Now, I did not know at the time, but my friend was on the Cole, and he survived. He told me about it many years later. Okay, no, my friend is not a stolen valor case because he has the proof. Okay, don't give me that shit. Okay, so I almost lost a friend in the Cole. He was injured, and he later recovered from his injury and was allowed to become a Navy SEAL. And he served with Woods and Doherty, who were killed in Benghazi. Now, if your kid converts religion, I don't know what to tell you. It's never happened in my family. My family is pretty much Roman Catholic. We're nowhere near the most devout Roman Catholics, but we are Roman Catholic. And my sister's brother-in-law married a Jew, and the 3 daughters are Jews, but he himself maintains his Catholic status. Okay? And it's never happened in my family. Now, if your kid converts to Islam, I don't know what to tell you. But I will tell you this. If your kid converts to Islam, and converting to Islam means going to the Middle East, I would be very suspicious about that. John Walker Lindh did convert to Islam. He did spend a lot of time in the Middle East. It is rumored that he met Osama bin Laden face to face. It is rumored that he knew that something was coming, if not the actual attacks, but he was in the Middle East at that time, and we don't know where he was. Okay, but he didn't just convert to Islam, he converted to radical Islam. Okay, and he renounced the United States. He still is by definition an American citizen, even though most of us consider him, shit under a boot, but he by definition is an American citizen to this day. And he renounced the United States, period. Okay, he has full sympathy for the Taliban, for Al Qaeda, for all forms of radical Islam, all forms. Okay, now did he kill an American by his own hand? We don't know, probably not. But the fact that he was over in the Middle East, taking up arms with enemy combatants, is a very, very serious problem. Now, a lot of he was a civilian or he was blah, blah, blah. Okay, here's the issue. You don't have to be in the military to commit treason. You don't have to be in the military to commit a war crime. You, by definition, are an American citizen or a legal immigrant living in the United States. So you have an obligation to behave a certain way. And going overseas, giving aid and comfort to the enemy is a serious problem. That is why Jane Fonda should have gone to prison. Jane Fonda went overseas to take pictures with the enemy, okay, to give aid and comfort to the enemy, and to appear on a communist radio channel, okay, broadcasting, okay, anti-American propaganda, okay, and she should have gone to prison too for 25, 30 years, a long prison sentence she should have got, but she didn't, okay, and, okay, so the fact that you were going overseas and taking up arms with an enemy combatant in a time of, even though you can't really declare war on terrorism. Terrorism is a weapon. It's kind of like declaring war on hand grenades, okay? But the ideology of terrorism, okay? The terrorist cells. The United States was engaged in combat with the terrorist cells, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, and later on ISIS and all the bullshit of Boko Haram, whatever the fuck names are, okay? So that is a serious problem. And he was charged with, aiding the enemy, blah, 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 bullshit. He pled guilty to one charge, got 20 years. 85% of the time is 17 years. He was released yesterday. And the problem is, Rudy Giuliani said he should have gotten the death penalty. A lot of other people said he should have been charged with treason. And no one has been convicted of treason since World War II. The Rosenbergs were charged with espionage, not treason. But he should have been charged with treason. Because there's no greater illustration of treason than to actively go overseas and fight with enemy combatants on behalf of the United States. And it's not like, he was an American serving in the French Foreign Legion and France and the United States went to war. Okay? And it's honorable combat on the field where men fight each other honorably and salute and shake hands at the end of the day. No, okay? This was not honorable combat, okay? Terrorism is not honorable combat, okay? If two armies want to kill each other, that's fine, okay? They kill each other, at the end of the day, they salute, they go home, and they have peace, okay? Terrorism is not honorable. Terrorism attacks children, terrorism attacks churches, terrorism attacks synagogues, terrorism attacks mosques, okay? Terrorists kill civilians, terrorists kill babies, terrorists hijack airplanes, terrorists hold hostages, okay? So there is no honor in that, period. Okay? So he went overseas to engage in dishonorable combat against the United States, which is much worse. And I don't know if there's an actual statute that says honorable combat, you're serving with a foreign army, you fight honorably, or dishonorable combat, you're fighting with terror, but it's bad. Okay? Now, if you behave yourself in prison, you only have to serve 85% of your time. So 17 years is roughly, no problem. But here's the problem. As late as, I think 4 years ago, they said it was, because when you're in prison, there's no Fourth Amendment. Okay? You in prison can be searched anytime the guards feel like it. And when you have correspondence in prison, with the exception of, if you're Roman Catholic, you confess to your priest, okay? With the exception of talking to a religious figure, or with the exception of talking to your lawyer, any communication in prison is fair game. The guards can wiretap your cell. The guards always listen on the phone. When you send letters back and forth via regular mail, the guards read those letters before they go out, and they read the letters that come into you. And the guards discovered a letter he wrote, or some fucking thing he wrote, where he says ISIS is doing good for the glory of Allah and all the bullshit, but he was trying as hard as he could to emphasize that he was sympathetic to ISIS, okay? And ISIS makes Al-Qaeda look like the fucking Care Bears, okay? This was in that period of time when ISIS was destroying monuments that were written about in the Bible, okay? They were chasing Christians out of Iraq. Those Christians have been in those cities since the Christian communities in Iraq were founded by the apostles of Christ himself. That's how long they've been there. They were chasing out the Christians that have been there since 2,000 years, okay? Okay? And they were bombing this, drowning people, beheading people, okay? ISIS was the worst terrorist organization in the history of the world. And he's pledging support to ISIS. Not just regular terrorism, but ISIS. Okay? So not only has he not gotten better, he's gotten worse. Now, by definition, and a lot of people say, oh, he was a young guy. They had this argument when it was going on. And I guess some idiots still make an argument today. He was a young guy. Okay. There are 7 living Medal of Honor recipients who are younger than him. I am a year younger than him, and I attempted to enlist in the Air Force and the Coast Guard, but I got rejected because of my heel. Okay. And I'm still upset about that. I'm sorry about that, but I am. Okay. If you look at Ross McGinnis, when he was 19 years, he's 5 years younger than Ross McGinnis, but when Ross McGinnis was 19, the same age as John Walker Lindh, roughly, give or take, 1920. When Ross McGinnis was 19, he was on a top turret, and a hand grenade was tossed into his turret, and rather than jump out, he went back into the main compartment of the Humvee, saw the grenade, and pressed his body against it to control the blast, to absorb the blast of the grenade. Okay? So don't give me this shit about he was only 19 years old. Okay? He was 19. Well, I was 19 once too. Okay? And I remember my reaction to the U.S. coal being bombed. Keep in mind, I did not know my friend was on at the time. My reaction was very, very upset because I saw sailors that were refueling. They weren't at war. They were just sailors refueling at a port in Yemen, and they got bombed for no reason. I was very upset by that. His response was, the U.S. military being here is an act of war. Now, the father defended that at the time. He said later on in the interview, well, I disagree with my parents about Vietnam. Yeah, okay. Well, there were hippies during Vietnam, and there were guys during Vietnam that didn't believe the United States should be fighting in Vietnam for whatever reason. And there were other guys like Jane Fonda who actively supported the enemy of the United States. Now, having a disagreement with your parents about Vietnam is a little different than saying the U.S. military being here is an act of war. They were out of fucking port refueling. They weren't even bothering anybody. Now, part of his parole, because he's on parole now, part of his parole is he cannot have any device that is internet capable. No computer, and every day, today you can have your fucking internet on your watch today, okay? Okay, internet is phone, internet is iPad, internet is computer, internet is, everything is internet, okay? Pretty soon we're gonna have a chip in our fucking brain for the internet, okay? But he's not allowed to have any internet device at all, period. Can you go to the public library? I don't know, probably. He's not allowed to communicate with anyone in any language other than English, okay? His passport has been seized. But here's the issue. He's sympathetic to ISIS. He is. No question. He's sympathetic to ISIS. What is ISIS telling people? See, because ISIS took terror to a new form. Okay, Al Qaeda and PFLP and all those other fucking guys out there. Okay, they had terrorist training camps in the deserts, and they wanted guys to go over to the desert to fight and to train as guerrilla operators. Okay, PFLP had guys coming into the Middle East, training as terrorists, and going to places such as, let's assume, Europe. Okay, Carlos the Jackal went to London and France, and Paris, even Paris specifically. Okay, ISIS is taking it to a new level. ISIS does not want people to go to the Middle East and fight unless they're there already. ISIS wants people to bring the fight to the infidels on their own land. That's why the fake refugees that were in Europe, okay, are committing terrorist attacks on a daily basis. Remember the Paris attack? I had a friend of mine from high school who had her husband when that happened. Thank God they were in the hotel. And they commit terrorist attacks at rock concerts, okay? They bombed the Ariana Grande concert, okay? you can go online and figure out how to make a bomb really easily. Okay, and I saw years ago, right around, I think before 9/11, I saw a video of a guy teaching how to make a suicide bomb. And he's talking about how to have the shrapnel put here, how to make the pouch, the wiring, okay? And he's got the fucking hood on it. My brothers, you do this first, then you do that, then you do that, then you do that, then you, okay? Okay, so you can learn how to make a bomb on the internet. Well, he has internet access, right? Public library. But he might have learned to make a bomb over in the Middle East. Mm-hmm. Now, what else is ISIS famous for? The car and knife attacks. And he does have a driver's license. Okay, is he going to rent a car? I hope not. Will they put a tracker on his license so he can't rent a car? I hope so. But if you look at a lot of things, look at the immigration policies, okay? The guy in New York City who was running guys over he was running guys over on Halloween a couple years ago, overlooking the new Freedom Tower. That guy was brought here by the Visa Lottery. Okay? So we've had guys that have falsely claimed refugee status and come here, falsely claimed refugee status and gone to Europe and done stuff in Europe. Okay? Can he take a butcher knife, get in a car, run people over, get out of the car, and stab people? Yes, he can. So I will be very, very, very concerned about this guy. Now, I understand that in America, you really can't relitigate a sentence, okay? It's impossible under American law to increase a sentence later on, okay? A lot of times you get a defense lawyer will make an appeal and they'll show something and the appeals court will reduce the sentence from, let's say, 10 years to 5 years. That happens. But as far as going to court and asking for more sentence, that does not work in America. It worked in South America with the Blade Runner, yeah. Oscar Pistorius, yeah. They did it to him. They increased the sentence, okay? In America, you cannot increase a person's sentence, period. You can't. Unless, of course, they're in prison and they commit a crime and you charge them with that crime. But as far as relitigating a sentence, it's impossible under American law. Sorry, it is. But being that we are still fighting terrorists, maybe he should have been taken out of the fucking prison over in Terre Haute and sent to fucking Gitmo. Because he, by definition, is an enemy combatant. Seized overseas while engaged in dishonorable combat against American forces. So maybe that could happen. But maybe he should have his fucking freedom taken away. Maybe he should be picked up and brought to Gitmo. Okay? That's what I would consider if it were possible. But I will bet you $1 million right now he's going to get in trouble again. I don't know if he's going to do a terrorist attack, but I will be very, very, very concerned about him. He can't buy a gun legally because he's a convicted felon. Okay, but he could buy one illegally. He could use explosives, knives, okay? I would be very, very worried about him right now. Not so much what he's already done that's in the past, but what he can do in the future. So if I were to sit down with his parole team and give them advice, my advice would be take extra careful for him. My advice would be have at least one parole officer assigned only to him. My advice would be search him every day. My advice would be put an ankle monitor on. My advice would be restrict his freedom as much as possible because you never know what he's going to do. He's on parole, therefore there is no Fourth Amendment. So tap his phone, or don't let him have a phone at all, period. Read his mail. Okay, follow him in public. Okay, anyone talks to him, follow them too. Okay, I would be very skeptical of this guy if I were you. That's my advice. Keep a very, very, very close eye on this motherfucker because he is gonna do something bad. Okay, forget the fact he was an American citizen. Forget the fact when Newt Gingrich was running for president in 2012, he said we should have a system to revoke American citizenship. Yes, we should. I'll be very, very worried. Thank you.